After tearing out a bunch of the interior and spray foam insulation, it was time for us to start replacing rotten chunks of deck. We weren't sure what the best way was to do this, or how much of the deck was actually going to need to be replaced, but we decided to start by using a hole drill to replace sections in between each set of ribs.
So was that a hole that you dug out?
That was a hole.
Yeah.
I tried to drill past the hole and the whole thing just fell apart, so I had to go back into good steel like quite a ways. I was gonna try and save some of this, but it's not even worth it.
Don't think so?
No, the whole thing is just back here.
I'm Taryn, this is Logan, and this is Max. Our life rarely goes as planned, and this story is no different. But we are determined to rebuild our beautiful steel boat, even stronger than she was before. And we're bringing you along with us. Not only did we have to experiment with the best way to replace sections, but also with the best way to keep the interior of the boat from lighting on fire.
First hole. Holy schmoly.
First piece.
Crazy.
You can see that's how thick it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's how thin it's getting in spots. This piece isn't bad. I was actually gonna leave most of this. But with the rib, like the hole being in the center, it being good coming this way, and the rib being right there, it just didn't make sense to only cut out 2 little circles.
Right.
Going the other way, I think it's all pretty much hooped.
Here goes hole number 2. So that's 2 down?
Yeah, so now we'll have to template that. As you can see, like if you look down, the whole piece is dished out.
Oh yeah, you can definitely see at the end.
Yeah, you can see how thin it is in the center here.
Yeah.
Well, that runs all the way down through this hole and goes like this. It gets a little bit thicker here. Like this would have been fine to leave. And then it's the same. There's almost a hole right here. Like here, you can see there's like a rusty chunk.
Oh yeah.
Right there. Then when you flip it over,
yeah,
you can see it's probably just rusted right through. And then you see these hammer spots.
Yeah.
Like this is all dents from the hammer. Which is pretty crazy because it shouldn't be able to dent. Like it's a pretty weak hammer.
Crazy.
It's the same with this one here. See how thin it?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Like that's almost right through. If we had sandblasted it, it probably would have gone right through. If you look at the edges, it's almost the same thickness all the way through. Same with this edge. It's a little bit of thin stuff right there, but it's good though. It means we've cut out all the shitty stuff, and when we weld in a new piece, it'll all be back to an 1/8 or 3 mil, or we're putting an 1/8 back in. Because that's what we can get. I've just got my deck templates, and I found some scrap metal that we're just going to trace them out on and cut them out. Grind them up, fit them, and weld them in.
paint also needed to be cleaned off the hull and the underside of the deck in order to minimize fires and porosity caused by paint fumes. With the use of clips, magnets, and painter's tape, I eventually figured out how to keep almost all the sparks off of our hull. Logan stitch welded the patches, rotating between ends and sides to make sure that we didn't end up with too much heat in one place. This technique worked really well as we didn't end up with any warping in the deck.
So, we have that welded in now, and Logan just cut out this section. So why did you choose to make it one long one instead of doing two like we did first off?
Because there was no material in between them.
No.
So, like it had just completely, this whole section had just rotted. There's the two cutouts there, and there's 5 holes in this one. Like there's a hole there, there, and here. So where you see that paper thin bit there?
Yeah.
That was over top of that rib.
Oh yeah.
And I think it was like that.
We continued on with this process, but the going was slow and we usually were only able to get 1 or 2 sections welded in a day, which was really not enough if we wanted to get the project finished. Eventually, after suffering through some long days without much progress, Logan came up with a potentially time-saving solution.
So we're gonna try our new method today, and that's using the flat bar and just notching it for the bend, the curve in the boat, and tracing it and cutting it out. So we're only cutting out that bit so that we're not wasting time on templating, plasma cutting out of our sheet stock. We need to start getting a better system down because this has been brutally slow. Yeah, and we just need to get this done.
Using the flat bar worked extremely well and cut our time per patch down by about 50%. We didn't have any heat warping, but we did have a couple of places in the deck that sunk as we were replacing rotten bits. So we came up with a creative solution to bring it back up.
That pushes the deck back up so that we don't get weird warping. Alright, so after a few days of moving those fire blankets around and getting very itchy from the fiberglass fibers because we cut the blanket in half, I have resorted to wearing half of a paint suit in hopes that it keeps my arms from getting itchy. So we'll see how well that works. But we're into our last 3 patches in the forward deck, and then we've got to come back again and pull all of the styrofoam out of the locker and the 2 lockers, and then do the raised bit on the sides. Yeah, and then we should be able to actually move on to doing the bulwarks before moving on to the starboard side. So luckily these patches are going a lot faster now that we are just using flat bar instead of cutting the patch sizes out of sheet metal, so that's good. Yeah, so fingers crossed we can actually get this done today and then get back into the back section.
The jury is still out on whether or not this paint suit actually worked, as it seems to depend on the day, but it was worth a try.
That's what we've been using to drill the holes. As you can see, it's almost flat, almost flush with the bit. Great. How does it feel to be done the first real big section of the deck replacement?
That feels pretty good. actually. No, it feels awful. My back and my legs are killing me.
You feel awful. The job being done feels good.
Yeah, well, look at that. That's quite a ways.
That is a lot of welding. Yep.
But yeah, no, it feels good to get that part of it done. I think we've decided that since it's going fast enough and it's easy enough, we're just going to replace all of it. Because the back deck there where it steps up a little bit, it's questionable, and we want to make sure that it's 100%. So we're just gonna cut it out and do it. So we still have that to do before we cut off the bulwarks. But yeah, it feels good to get that done. It's been a long day of grinding and welding and cutting.
But before we could replace those last patches, we had a bunch more of insulation and wood to tear out.
So before I start tearing all the insulation out of the locker here, I just wanted to show you guys how funny it looks. Yeah. Look at all the colors. There's not supposed to be more than one color in here. So that means we've got like 4 different kinds of insulation that have been sprayed in here. Each color is a different kind of insulation. So I've got to pull all that out, all the way back there. All this out, sorry. I've got to pull all this out, all the way back through there. How I'm going to get back in there, I'm not sure. It looks almost like gelato or something, but obviously it's not. How unfortunate. How great would it be to come in here and instead of having to pull insulation out, I just got to eat a bunch of gelato. It'd be like a dream come true. Anyway, better get to work. Hello. I'm in here trying to scrape foam out, but I'm also very claustrophobic, and this corner is very small and very closed in, so it's taking longer than it should because I have to psych myself into actually getting back there and cutting stuff out.
And this is what she's talking about. Go back in there.
I don't want to. There's a bunch of hoses. It's tight. So this is a big storage locker, obviously. When there's nothing in here, it seems pretty big. But the reality is that, oh, and this is our propane locker, that's what this is. But it's really hard to get around the corner and get in here and cut all the stuff out, so.
It is, because that goes all the way around this way.
Yeah, around the side of the locker, and then there's a bulkhead. And then another locker that I also have to get in there again and take out the foam because there's like a narrow bit before it opens up into the big locker that's on the other side of this bulkhead, and I haven't taken the foam out of that yet, so. Yeah, and this is the one spot where they properly did the spray foam and it's actually like thick to the point where it's supposed to be.
It's very much adhered to everything.
Yeah, so it's really hard to take out. So it's like the most difficult place on its own, even if the foam was like everywhere else, but it's adhered better than everywhere else, so it's just, and it's thicker. So we saved the worst for last. Should I show around the corner what it looks like?
Sure.
Okay. If I can get the camera past myself. Yeah, so this is the corner, well, part of the corner. It's like tight. And then, through all the hoses back there. So on the other side of this bulkhead there where the hoses are going through, there's more foam that I've got to take out. And then there's the other locker that I started in this morning. So yeah, it's tight. I'm going to be in here a while. I was hoping that this would be done today and then we could actually get the rest of the deck replaced today, but I don't think that's happening with how slowly this foam's coming out, so. Oh well.
Yep. And we're removing that because, yeah, it's a bit of an awkward spot. We're having to replace this strip, which is the last thing, hopefully the last thing we have to do on the port side, other than the bulwarks. Oh yeah, and Taryn found one more thing. This bollard here has a plate welded around it, and we found out why. Because it's rotten. So the deck was rotten underneath this. They just replaced or patched it with some stainless. The steel underneath wasn't prepped properly for paint or anything, so it's rusted. And it's sunk in, and it's just, yeah, we're cutting parts of the deck out. We might as well cut that out too and fix it. The next place for me is to come in here and start removing this sheet of plywood and scraping the foam out from behind that. Finished grinding all the welds all the way along the deck, all the way up to here. So now we have a good solid deck on the port side forward of the back deck.
While we were in those lockers, we determined that, based on what we could see, one of the bulkheads was kind of useless to us, and that it would make better sense if we would just pull it out to have more access in between the two rear lockers. So we decided to try and cut it out. But as you can see, it was pretty hard to see what was on the other side of that bulkhead due to all the spray foam.
Well, we went to cut it out because we all pretty much agreed that there's no point in keeping it. Turns out that there is a metal bulkhead behind there that you can't see.
It's right here. This is flush with it.
Yeah. We couldn't see it because there's so much spray foam on the other side. So this is all that's coming out now, but it's definitely given us better access to that area, so that's good.
Yeah, now we can actually come down here and we're able to see where the exhaust hose goes through and the manual bilge pump and stuff.
Yeah, so it is a lot better. It's definitely not as awesome as we were hoping for, but yeah, there's a metal bulkhead there that the propane locker is attached to, so yeah, that's good.
And there is a pipe full of wires right here going this way. And there's a whole bunch of stuff just randomly shoved in here.
So we're finally at the point where we're doing the last section of the port side deck replacement. It's taken so long to get here, like way longer than we expected. We've done other things in the meantime, but anyway, it's very nice to finally be doing it. And yeah, so we've got everything ready to be kind of done now, and Logan's just about to start actually getting the pieces ready to be replaced.
We're going to replace this back section in two pieces. So basically what I'm doing is just cutting this bar to length. The flat bar that we're going to patch it with, I'll notch it and push it to the curve of the hull. And hole saw out the ends between each rib, like at either side of each rib. So I can slice along it with the cutoff disc and cut a nice, easy to prep slot for this to drop into. And then we'll clean this up and weld it in.
You can see that it's raised around the bollard. So somebody has actually welded on another piece of plating over top of what was rusty. And it just continued to rust underneath. So that's why you don't just weld in a new plate over top of rust. You have to actually cut it out and clean it up, or it keeps rusting.
So we cut that guy out so we could properly fix the rust issues.
That's a hole.
Yeah, now we have to figure out how we're going to patch this. We have a little piece of scrap stainless plate, but it's not quite big enough to cover the hole. So I think what we're actually going to do is make this plate come up like this.
Okay.
So for this patch that we're going to do, which is going to be right to here,
Yeah.
we're going to cut it out of a piece of plate.
Oh, instead of the flat bar?
Yeah, so it's the whole thing. And then what I'm going to do is cut this guy off of here.
Yeah.
Trace a circle on here, like the same size as this.
Yeah.
And basically just weld this so it's closed on the bottom. These are hollow.
Okay.
That's, well, you can see what happens when they're hollow and air can get in.
Oh,
It
yeah.
rots from the inside out.
Oh, I see. So that's why you want to put a stainless plate in there.
So I'll put a stainless plate on the bottom so oxygen can't go through and, well, rot the deck out.
Yeah.
It's a really poor design, actually. I thought these were, because these aren't cheap. I thought they were done better. But yeah, that's what happens when you
Look at all that rust coming out.
like weld a stainless plate over top of the deck. Is it continues to rust underneath.
Yeah.
So then it just works its way out, and eventually it's all just rust.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're hollow. That's really stupid.
Crazy, hey?
Mm-hmm. Because they're not, these aren't welded right round, so of course air's gonna get underneath them.
Like, what? Really? Why?
I don't know, they just have a small bead run right on the bottom and that's it.
Huh.
Seems stupid. Makes me question the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
We ended up cutting out a fairly large patch to replace. Logan used a dog and wedge in combination with magnets to get the piece to sit flush with the rest of the deck. And then it was on to another problem area.
So what did you just find?
Well, from this tiny little hole right here,
Yeah.
the rust has spread back through the deck. And it's still, I don't know, I gotta chip all this away and have a look, but also have to remove these and have a look underneath them. Another reason why I think it's a bad idea to put stuff through the deck instead of just welding it on.
Yeah. That's
So,
fair.
not exactly sure what we're gonna do with this one yet. I'd really like to have those 180-degree bends that we could just weld through the deck and then shove stuff through them and silicone them up after. I think that's the way to go. It's the easiest way to run cabling through the deck, because then you can change it at any time without having to remove this, and you don't need to reseal them. They're just no maintenance afterwards. Well, that was easy. That was the easiest thing we've had to remove yet.
Damn, it's so clean under there. Look at that. Look how clean it is under there. That's so surprising.
So I didn't realize this last frame back here didn't have a deck beam attached to it or anything.
Okay, but here's the really weird thing about this. So there's this little piece right here, and then right here, there's a stringer that goes all the way across, and it's just not attached on either side to those little braces. So weird. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
Anyways, yeah, the hull sprung out right here, pulled this rib as I cut this last patch out. So I think you can see it. You can see where it sprung out right here.
Yeah.
Now I'm gonna have to take and weld an eye to here and pull the hull back with a come along, which isn't a big deal. It's just
Extra work.
another thing. Just that. That's our patch for here. And yeah, get that welded in and we'll be done. Okay, can you grab this? Just this. And go and hook it on that.
Once we had the hull pulled back in, things went pretty smoothly.
What time is it?
Like 7 o'clock?
It's finished this side time! We're
Wow.
finished the port side
We're not finished.
deck
We're finished replacing bits of the port side deck.
that we thought would be finished 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, my God, that was quite an adventure. But look at the crazy shapes. We had a lot more to cut out than we thought we did.
Wow, crazy shapes. Ooh. Yep, that was the last of it though. We're freaking done the deck on this side. So
Yeah, we just have to grind this and then start prepping for the bulwarks.
yeah. So tomorrow we get to start working on the bulwarks. So we've got to do some templating, and Logan's gonna weld on little chunks of steel to like right against the bulwarks so that we know what our angle has to be for the plate. And then we get to start on that, which is very exciting because that's like, ooh, the bulwarks is the last of the big projects. So we do one side, the other side will be easier after that. Next side should be a lot faster.
Yeah.
The worst side.
It was our learning side. For sure. And the bulwarks look like it's going to be a big project, but I think it's going to go a lot faster. It's just a lot of welding.
Yeah,
I mean,
a lot
a
of
lot
welding.
of welding. And we have to do it in little bits so we don't warp them all the way.
Thanks so much for joining us, and an extra shout out to our patrons for helping us problem solve through this portion of the project. See you next week.